Hi Power Plurals, my name is Sarah Clark and welcome to the next video of Power to the Plurals. In this video, I was sharing my 5-step plan to become a collective DID system. If you've watched our latest video, the 10 things I wish I'd known 10 years ago, you might have heard in step 10 that we said that you are not a system or a collective system unless you work for that. And some people, they didn't really agree with that, and they gave me the feedback that it sounded as if I was saying that they can't call themselves a system until they have reached a certain threshold or have done a certain amount of work, and that doing that work takes a lot of time, and so that is unfair. And I fully agree on that, and that was not in my intent to convey it in that way. So I want to put that straight in this video, that I don't think you have to reach a certain threshold before you are a system. But I do think that many of us got diagnosed with DID and thought, okay, this is the answer. We know what it is now, it's fixed, right? And that was not true. And I think many of us, years later after we got diagnosed or found out that we had DID, we look back and we think, I wish I had known 5 or 10 years ago that I should interact with my system mates, or that rules can help us if they are fair to everyone inside. And all these other little things that we look back on now and think, oh, that makes sense. Why didn't I think of that myself 10 years ago? Which is, logic that we didn't think about it ourselves 10 years ago, right? If we all did, we didn't need therapy, or we didn't need someone to write good guidelines on how to treat DID, because we would know it ourselves, but we don't. Unfortunately, I wish we do. Some systems have an amazing insight in how to reach that within their systems and how to set up that communication and the connection with each other. But for other systems, it's more hard. And that's not a judgment. That is just how our brain is wired after the trauma we endured. And it's also not to say that those who have great internal communication have less trauma. Not at all. There's no need for trauma weighing. Most of us didn't become co-conscious overnight. It took work and effort. We had to learn these things and work towards it. And one day it clicked. It was the realization, this takes work together. We have to work on this together. And so that is where this whole concept of the 5 steps come from. So I looked at the Google definition of what a system is. That was just the first thing that popped up on Google, which, makes sense. And what it says is that a system is a set of things working together as part of a mechanism or an interconnected network, a complex whole, which I really like. They are probably not talking about DID systems, but it really applies on us, and I really like that and I appreciate it. I also think that following these 5 steps can really empower yourself and your system. I think it's a great way to reach the 3 C's or the 5 C's as Sue Richardson described it, which we also have a video on, and I will link that down below. So here are my 5 tips how you can become a collective DID system. Let's go. Number 1, internal communication. Communication is so important. If you can't talk with the others, you can't really make progress, and it's really difficult to find someone to interpret between the two of you or all of you from the outside. So when you just get diagnosed or just find out you have DID, maybe it's necessary that someone on the outside translates for you, right? So if someone else comes out and they tell something to your therapist or your partner, then your partner or therapist needs to give you feedback on what they shared with them. Or maybe you have to journal and read everything on paper and write everything down. And that can work really well. You can do really good, deep work with that. But sometimes you just want to ask a quick question, right? When you just got diagnosed or when you just found out you had DID, it might have been really hard for you to communicate with most of the others. Maybe it was easy with 1 or 2 of them, but to reach some of the others might have taken more time or more effort. And so that is why we think that communication is step 1 in becoming a collective system. You have to be able to communicate with each other one way or the other. Eventually, it is so much easier to be able to ask things inside and get an answer right away. And so we hope that if you establish internal communication and co-consciousness with that will really help you. And so we have a video with 11 tips on internal communication that I won't include here, but I will link it here and down below in the description. So go ahead and watch that if you don't have internal communication yet. Step number 2 is agree on house rules or rules in general. And so I think that it is a good idea to vote about those rules. That's why you first need internal communication to make this a little bit easier. And so for rules, what a general idea is in my system is that we look at our collective life or look at the person who was living when they figured out we needed rules. And we said, okay, what rules are we living with now? What rules would we like to live by but are hard for us, so we neglect them? And what are the rules that we don't want in our life but that we do enforce upon ourselves? And so what we found was that not everyone could agree with the rules that we set up for ourselves. We had to put some water with the wine, we had to negotiate, and we had to vote about our rules. But eventually we found a nice medium of what works for us. And so by negotiating like that, I think you can really find a fair system for your system. And I think it's individual what you want for your life. We all live different lives. And so inside and outside. And so I think it's good that you make rules for yourself together as a collective system. If the word rules is triggering to you or someone in your system, it's fine to call them something else like guidelines or safety plan or whatever works for you. Number 3, get everyone on the same page and set life goals. Getting everyone on the same page is a really difficult step that can take a long time. And so what we found in our system that helped was that if many of us got excited about something, that those who didn't get excited, eventually they joined in because they saw it was working for us. So for example, the night before our son comes home, we go to bed early. And that was really difficult for some altruists because the nighttime for them, if they are awake, that is the safest time of the day. If they have to sleep, it's bad. And we talked about that in our previous video as well, right? The nightmares. But by now, we have proven to those other alters that we just function better if we go to bed early when our son is home. And so they've seen that. They have seen the evidence that it works for us. And so by now, they agree that it's better for everyone to just comply to the rule and go to bed on a decent time when we have something important to do the next day. So let's talk a little bit about your most important life goals. This can be very, very different for different people in your system, right? Maybe one wants to be a doctor and the other one wants to be a painter. And so is that the case for you? Then maybe you can be a doctor from Monday to Friday and a painter in the weekend. I know that is far from ideal, and I know that is not what everyone wants. And I know there will be people who will be upset and hurt that there is not enough time for them or for what they want to do. Unfortunately, that is part of life with DID. I wish I had the magic answer on how to create more time for everyone in your system, but unfortunately I don't. You can try to do some planning, right? Say Monday to Friday I work as a doctor and in the weekend I'm a painter. But that's probably as best as it's gonna get. It's really difficult to plan out, okay, on Monday, Isa is gonna be there, and on Tuesday, Sarah is gonna be out, and on Wednesday, Emily is gonna be there, and on Thursday, Sarah Clark is gonna be there. It doesn't work like that for us, at least. Maybe it works for some people, but I don't think it works for most people. And so by setting your major life goals, by voting about them, by talking about them, by sharing your passion and your ideas, conveying them to the rest of your system, and then agreeing on what major life areas you're going to focus on, you can try to not create more time for everyone, but it's clear to everyone what the priorities are. So for us, that's our son, that's our number one priority always. And then after that, we have things like our personal health, and our mental health care or self-care, as some people call that. Things like my Facebook group and my YouTube and my website are important to me. So those things have a higher priority than, let's say, go to the spa, which some of my alters love to do. But that just happens once a year, right? And that's it, because it's not a high priority for us. And for other people, that might be a high priority, and that's fine. You have to figure out for your own system what your priorities are and what your major life areas are that you want to work on as a collective system. Number 4, divide roles and tasks within your system and work together to make it happen. Like I explained in my previous video, it's okay to trust your system and to rely on them, to ask them for help and to work together. So that is what this Step number 4 is all about to work together and to divide roles and tasks to make life easier for everyone inside. And those roles and tasks are not just for the outside life, but also for our inside life. Our littles need carers inside. We need people who go out hunting with our non-humans. They need to go out in the inner world and go hunt. And so Drake goes with them and makes sure everyone is safe, it stays together, and everyone comes back home again at the end of their journey, of their little trip. And so we all have roles inside, and you might, need very different roles in your inner world. But I think everyone can come up with roles or tasks that need to be done inside or outside that you can divide within your system. And I think it's great if you can work together on those. Number 5 is set up inner world meetings and meet up regularly to check in with each other, how you're doing, to see how your day was, of what you're going to do today, and to work on those major life areas. Stick to the plan that you set together, that you voted on together, and to see what you can do today and tomorrow to make it happen and to let it become a reality. You truly are your best support network. No one else can look in your head but you. Well, some people can look in their head, not everyone. But you can at least listen in or learn to listen in and communicate in that way. No one else can do that. No one else on the outside can look in your head or hear inside your head, right? Only you. And so because of that, you are your best support network. If you have a therapist or a care team, they might be there a lot, but they're not always there. But your inner world, your other parts, they're always there. And so once you have that communication established and you can reach each other almost all the time, that really enables you to become your best support system. So if you look at the perspective that you currently are not a system, you have DID and you have alters, but you are not a system. Maybe you are, I don't know you, so I don't know who's watching this, right? I'm talking to a lot of people here. But imagine for a second, you are not a system, you are just alters, living together in the same headspace, but not actively working together to become or to are a collective system. That means that it gives you collectively the freedom to build your own system, to set it up in the way you want. It means that you can assign roles to other alters, that you can ask for help, and then you can work together if everyone wants that. Obviously, it takes time. And if you look at yourself from the perspective that you are not a system and you're going to set this up, then that means you built the system so you can make it the way you want and you can trust fully on that. And I think that is a wonderful thing. And I think it helped us so much to realize that this is how it worked for us. We were diagnosed for years, and one day it clicked. We said, this is what we have to do. We have to sit down. We have to communicate every day. We have to check in upon each other. We have to agree on rules. Even if we don't like them very much, we have to agree on them or we're going to be stuck like this forever. We have to get on the same page and have the same life goals. We can't have someone who wants to live in Africa and at the same time someone wants to do YouTube for DID and at the same time someone wants to just care for our kid here in the Netherlands. It's just not possible. I wish it was, but it's not. And so by now, Esther, who wants to live in Africa or lives in Indonesia, she accepted that she lived that part of her life and that she can help in other ways. And so, we found our ways to deal with that and to, for now, focus on our major life goals together because we truly believe that it's gonna bring us further along on our healing journey. We had to divide the task and roles. We had to learn these things and work towards it. You can't, right? You have to accept where you are today. And then only from there, from accepting where you are right now, you can move along further ahead. And so I hope that this video conveys better what I tried to set with my step 10 in my latest video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. See you next Thursday for our next educational video. Thank you so much. Bye bye and good luck to you all.